I'm Janie Morris, your host, and it gives me the absolute pleasure to have your company back with us again for another inspirational episode. Of course, every episode that we do bring you with our guests is always filled around what Soul Centre is all about. We're about good health, we're about well-being, we're about longevity, and we're also about fitness. And today's guest has got a little bit of all of that in what they do, who they are, where they're going, and what they can bring to you. So join me in welcoming Paul Eliseo from Evolve and Relaunch. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Janie, how you doing?
Really good. How are you?
Fantastic.
Well, Paul, I have known you for a few years now, and I invited you to be on the podcast today because your story is not only inspirational, and we'll get in about that before you became involved in co-founding Evolve and Relaunch. But you also have a lot of elements that come in and around what Soul Centre is all about. So can you just give our audience a little bit of background on you?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me here, and hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My background really is multifaceted, but it all started back when I wasn't at sort of the point I am now. In my late teens, early 20s, I personally went through a lot of tumultuous things in my external world. My family dynamic was sort of changing. I was getting to that point of getting into the real world after school and went through my first real breakup. So there was a lot of things happening in my world that were creating a lot of external chaos, but it was also creating a lot of internal chaos. So I started getting panic attacks. I started having really bad anxiety. My physical body was really struggling, a lot of stomach and things going on with issues like irritable bowel syndrome. And what started happening was my nervous system, my body, my mental emotional state was getting more and more stressed, more and more fearful, and it almost seemed like the things that I was afraid of was getting bigger and bigger while my world was getting smaller and smaller. So it got to the point where I couldn't even really leave the house. If I did go to the shops, I'd be running through shopping centers. And the job I had at the time, we were going out and about to different locations to fix, some of the things that they had at their factories and stuff. And I'd have really bad panic attacks and even points where I'd black out and not even remember what happened for the rest of the day, which is kind of scary because I didn't even remember how I got home. And it all kind of culminated in a point where all I wanted to do was leave my house to go to my best friend's house, which was a 2-minute drive away. And I went back and forth dozens of times to the front door and just couldn't even do it. And basically got to the point where it was either I give up on everything and not be able to, I went and saw doctors, and all the things that they were trying to help me with was basically stick a tube in this or do that. And no one was asking me what was going on inside or what was happening to me in my world. It was just trying to treat the physical symptoms of what was going on. And so I made myself a promise that day that I would find what I needed to and learn what I needed to change myself, because I didn't at that time find anything that could help me external. And so I stumbled into a library one day after making myself a promise that I'd get out of the house and just find a way to get somewhere, and found a book that basically got me to start looking at what was happening inside. And it was basically just keep a thought journal. And when I started to track my thoughts, my feelings, and what was triggering them, I realized that a lot of what was happening in my body and a lot of what the stresses of the external world were coming from was what was happening inside. And when I realized that, it all of a sudden just opened up this door of possibility for me. And all of a sudden I started getting really excited about what I could learn. Because once I realized that my thoughts were creating how I felt, and then that was affecting what I could and couldn't do in my life, all the doors that were closing started opening back up again. And I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I actually got really inspired to learn. And then that basically started the journey of me on that self-discovery, starting to learn things about how to shift my body and mind. Because in my teenage years, I'd become quite athletic and quite into sport. But then the last few years leading up to that moment, it kind of all fell away. So I started getting back into movement again, started getting into learning and treating my mind and body differently, feeding it differently, learning to do self-hypnosis and meditation, learning some of the skills that I teach today in the NLP and some of the mindset shifting tools. And that all slowly started to shift things. And I went from a kid that couldn't leave his bedroom to within a few years working the biggest gym in South Australia. And it's just actually down the road from here. And there was thousands of members there. And when I started, there was like 40 plus trainers. And I went from, not even being comfortable leaving my room to being in this gym with hundreds of people at a time, and slowly started to thrive there. And went from a PT that had no clients to being the personal trainer of the year for South Australia, started teaching other trainers how to train people, and then pretty quickly realizing it didn't matter how much I learned about nutrition and exercise, my clients would sabotage their results so they wouldn't stick to their program. And then I realized the blocks that were stopping them were the same thing that was stopping me. It was all the mental, emotional challenges that they kept bumping up against that were holding them back or making them stop when they were starting to get results or not stick to things. So I brought back the skills that changed my life into the training. And so I started to use the body and the mind to help clients. And then that really just took off. And then I started traveling around Australia. And then eventually it became what it is today and started helping people to work at both levels and really integrate all those tools so they could really get the best of both worlds.
How hard was it when you were working as a personal trainer and identifying, because of your experience with your clients, that what was holding them back, what was sabotaging them, was actually their mindset? How hard was it for you to actually get that across to those clients and then get them on board?
Well, initially, I didn't have any awareness of it. I just thought I'd go in after doing my Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness. You get your push-pull legs program. Everyone's going to lose weight. Everyone's going to get results. But then pretty quickly, you're banging your head against the wall. It's that Groundhog Day. You're working with your clients every month. Okay, what are we going to work on? Track their weight, track their measurements, set some goals. Then the month after, same thing again, same thing again. It's like, how come they're not getting anywhere? Or they would get somewhere and they'd fall off. And I started really specializing in pain management and doing corrective exercise with people. And I started seeing that when the pain would go away and when it would come back and when people would get results and when they wouldn't. And as a personal trainer, you're sort of an unpaid counselor / psychologist anyway. So you're doing your exercise and you're talking about nutrition and lifestyle stuff, but then you're hearing about all their personal world and all the challenges and all their family dynamics and all the other stuff that's coming up. And eventually you start putting pieces of the puzzle together and you kind of see these patterns and themes that are emerging in your client's life. And when they are getting great results, what's happening, and when they're not getting great results, what's happening in the bigger picture of their life. And so it does become pretty obvious pretty quickly. And I love talking to trainers and coaches and people that are therapists or working in any skill set with clients, and they realize pretty quickly that their physio work only works to a certain degree and then people fall off, or their exercise program works for a while and it doesn't stick to their clients because of this and that, and they realize there's a lot more going on. And a lot of the clients know, but they sometimes need someone external to talk it through and see it, because it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly when you are sitting down and talking to someone every week, every month, and kind of objectively measuring the results and the outcome. And when they can each month, either they're going the wrong way or they're not getting somewhere, really going, okay, well, you're doing the right exercises, you're doing this, what else is going on? And then eventually it goes, oh, okay, I overeat because of this. Or, this is the thing I do to help myself relax because I'm so stressed at work. And then it comes back to emotions. It comes back to the way they handle their external and internal world. And you can't always do that in the gym. So really equipping them with tools and techniques to make those shifts is a big thing that made the biggest difference.
So bringing that into outside of the gym, Paul, and then into life in general, have you seen what? Let me preface that by saying in the media in particular, there's a lot of emphasis these days, and we also see it in our own families, that because of the current economic situation, that the global chaos that we go through, certainly after COVID in particular,
Yes.
and what have you, stress levels are out of control. People are bouncing off of walls and so on and so forth. So taking it outside then from the gym into life in general, how have you seen what you've learned and what you share with others? How have you seen that make a difference, or has it? And is it easy or not?
Well, great questions. I think the thing that makes the biggest difference is when someone realizes that it's never what's happening to them and around them that actually has control over how they interact with it. The control is always internal. It's not the thing, it's the way you think and feel about the thing that changes the thing external. So some people look at the external world and see chaos in the economy and they go, oh my God, this is terrible. Everything's dropped 30% in a day. And other people see that and go, oh great, what a good buying opportunity. So it's not the market going down, It's the way you're perceiving the market going down. For some people, they see an opportunity. Some people see a crisis. And so it's all about the way you're framing it and the way you're looking at the world. And so what we've realized through a lot of great research is most stresses these days are not actual physical stresses. They're emotional stresses that become physical stresses through your perception. So we'll look at a family situation or a work situation or driving down the road and a car cuts us off. All of those things are inherently meaningless, but because of our human nervous system, we're looking through our primitive wiring and primitive hormonal system that's based on fight or flight, survival, and we're seeing it as a lot of survival threats when really being 5 minutes late for a meeting is not the end of the world. But in our mind, we think, oh, we're going to lose our job, which then means that threatens my safety, which then means this, and then it creates all the hormones, all the chemicals of that tiger chasing you, when really you're just sitting in your car. You could just crank up your music a little bit more and relax or listen to Soul-Centered podcast, right? So it's the interface between the external and the internal is where we've got the power, and whether or not you let the world outside control you and steer you, or you take a moment to learn the mechanisms of how your mind works and how the body and mind respond to that and learn to shift it. Because if you can make your body a cool, calm, collected place, then you're not as reactive and responsive to the external world. You actually got time to think and feel the way you need to and actually look at opportunities, look at what you're grateful for. The world will be different when you're seeing it different. So that's the real powerful thing when people get, because it doesn't matter how bad the world looks outside, every equally bad situation has an equally positive to it. It doesn't matter who you've talked to, they've had a major breakup, it's terrible at the time, but it actually created a lot of opportunity for something different. If they've had a situation where maybe they've lost a job, that opened up a space for a new business or something they never would have had before. So everything has its equal and opposite. And if people have the time and space to put themselves in that place where they can see that, they're going to take away a lot of the emotional charge and a lot of the power they're giving away to the world and take back the control to actually do something about it and be the one that's steering the ship versus just being the ship in the waves and all the chaos that's going on around them.
So I know that a lot of our audience would be listening to this and potentially be in chaos or having major challenges and so on and so forth, and they're hearing you and what you're actually saying. I can certainly, I'm sitting back now, Paul, and I'm listening to you and I'm going, what you're saying is what I want.
Yes.
What you're saying is where I want to be. What you're saying is what I want to do. And then there's this little voice that goes, oh yeah, but you've got this, you've got this, they've got this. What are some of the things that we could do, just little things, just to start to rewire that? Because I would call that a fuse blow,
yes.
really.
Well, and also what's happening for a lot of people is there are so many tabs open. And so we kind of chatted before the podcast about being a bit of a sprinkler. And if you have lots of tabs open, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. And, to put out a lot of fires at once or whack a lot of moles is not easy. So we kind of have to direct our focus because our nervous system has a capacity which once it's reached, it kind of hits a threshold where it can't handle it. So the stats used to say 7 plus or minus 2 things you'd focus on, then you feel overwhelmed. But the actual latest research shows it's even smaller than that. And it's some say 5 things, some say 3 things, and people kind of lose what they can focus on. So the brain's really good for lots of things, but it's not really great for holding lots of different tabs open at a time. So a great thing for people to do is to think on paper. Get a piece of paper, and this is something for people that are watching and listening. I'll help you guys get a download where I actually talk you through the steps of this, and empty your brain on paper, all the things you're worried about, just make the paper the place for it to stay. And then once you've done that, go through a series of questions that I'll guide you through, and literally you'll take those things and empty your brain out, because your brain is trying to get you to notice potential problems and threats. It's really great at that. It can find them anywhere. But once you've got them, actually turning them into a stepping stone for you to take action or to disregard it because it's not actually that important, and becoming a to-do list or becoming a this I can do later thing, then you're actually telling your nervous system what to do with it. Because if you've got all these tabs open, they're all popping up saying, focus on me, that can be way too much. But when you've actually thought it through and made it what it needs to be and put it where it needs to go, your brain has space to be present, which is a key thing anyway. When you're present, when you're in the here and now, there's no threat. But our mind goes into the past, the future, and actually isn't here right now, and that creates a lot of problems. So being here with it, seeing it objectively externally on a piece of paper is huge. And then you can go into making a bit of a plan. So what could happen if that does happen? Prevent some of the problems. What can I do, you know, to make sure that doesn't actually happen? And then having a whole heap of different to-do list items where you actually feel like you can do something about it versus just stewing. Because worry doesn't get you a result. Paying attention to it, your nervous system having the anxiety and overwhelm, it's a sign that you're focused on what you don't want or a potential threat. So if you can take that signal from your body and go, oh, that's showing me that this could happen, what am I actually going to do about it? That turns the problem into a possibility and a solution. Then you actually can do something about it, because it's not there just to make you feel bad. It's there to get your attention, but don't let it drown you in it. Just get it, pay attention and do something with it. That's just to empty your brain out. But then there's a whole heap of other tools that you could use, like breathing. And in the Overcoming Overwhelm training, which I'll make sure we get a link for, we talk you through some breathing techniques. We talk you through a whole heap of different tools and techniques where you can empty your brain out and you can feel like you've gone from overwhelm, you've gone into clarity, feel present, and you can actually take action and do something about it. Then you're going to start winning. You're going to start pushing the ball in the direction where you want to go, and you'll get that momentum. So I think a lot of people, they don't have momentum in their life. They're so stacked up and overwhelmed with all the things that keep piling up. But once you actually start prioritizing, taking action on some things that are freeing up energy, freeing up headspace, you start feeling really good. I don't know if you ever close tabs on your computer, but all of a sudden things start working better. And the same thing with your nervous system. Once you get to a certain point, things slow down, things get a little bit clunky and slow. So we need to kind of do the same thing we would do for our computer, but for ourselves.
I'm absolutely loving this, because as you're saying that, I am thinking of the first thing in the morning when I sit down to my office desk and I open up my computer. The first thing that I see, Paul, is all across the top.
Yes.
There's all these different colored tabs that I won't close because I may need to check that a little bit later on.
Yes.
May need to do this with that later. I was thinking about it as you were saying that, and I'm sure that our audience thought it as well, and I'm sure that I am not the Lone Ranger on this.
Yes.
And that, I reckon I've got about 30 tabs open
Yes.
every morning. And do you know, by the end of the day, they're still open.
Yep.
And I don't know whether I've gone in there or not. And my biggest fear is that my computer's going to crash and I'm going to lose all those tabs and I won't remember what I'm looking at. So that's
it's a good
advice.
external mirror for what's happening internally. So that's a
Yeah.
metaphor for your life as well. Having so many tabs open and being worried that you're going to lose them all, that's a real thing for a lot of people, because people have family, kids, work, and the tabs just keep getting more and more. But what the nervous system is really good at is focusing on limited things and being in the moment and getting those done. And it's not great at having 50 things all happening at once, because we do become a sprinkler and we basically become pretty inefficient at doing all those things. So doing less better, that works out better long term than doing lots of things very poorly. Going a little tick in a million different things versus getting real deep, getting a great result, and that's done. That tab is closed. Awesome, we've resolved it. That feeling of relaxation and relief that you get from actually having that off the list, that creates momentum. But going a lot of every direction, just a little way, and not actually getting anywhere, that's tiring. And that's why a lot of people, I think, feel stressed, because they're not actually closing the tabs on a lot of the things they've got open in their nervous system.
I'm loving this, Paul. I'm absolutely loving this. If I am, I know our audience is, but thank you for that. Can you share with us what started, what inspired, what brought you to co-found Evolve and Relaunch, and what is Evolve and Relaunch?
Perfect. Well, Evolve and Relaunch naturally evolved from what I was doing prior to that. I was running a personal training business that became a mindset and education business, and I was traveling all around Australia educating mostly personal trainers, but then it started branching out to everyday people that wanted to do better at work, people that were already working with people, whether they were physios, counselors, psychologists, and wanted to add more skill sets into helping people get better results. And on the journey of that, I was lucky enough to meet my beautiful partner, Juliet, who I know that you know and you've worked with a lot as well. And we just clicked. Everything in my world just made sense. And I was really living my life purpose in terms of my job. But when Juliet came into the picture, everything just made a lot more sense in every other area of life as well. We basically business and life partners. We've been together. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Juliet.
Oh,
And so
okay.
it's been amazing. Like everything in my life sort of became even more great once she became part of it. And Juliet went on her own little journey, and she started retreats. She helps people write books, and she also started teaching a lot of things that I teach. And so eventually we were doing our own things because I think we both wanted to prove that we could do it by ourselves. And I was already doing it, but Juliet, she had came from a corporate world. She was super successful in what she was doing, uh, national manager in a big business, and left that, relaunched her life, which was her business, and started helping other people to do that. And once she had done that long enough, and I was doing my own thing, we were like, it was actually an accountant that was pretty unsexy saying, why don't you guys just combine your businesses, because you got two books basically on the same thing. But we were already co-teaching and doing things together. It just made sense. So we kind of blend what was my business at the time, Evolve Mind and Body Coaching, and Juliet's business, Relaunched My Life, and became Evolve and Relaunch Education. And we've been teaching and traveling together. We've been running workshops and retreats. We've co-written books together. It's been amazing. And having the flavor of both my background, which is a bit more from the health and fitness side, and Juliet's background, the corporate world, and understanding that's a whole different thing that I just haven't really ever had to be a part of. People really love our dynamic because you've been in that and you've seen our presentation style is very different.
Mm.
Juliet's a lot more professional, but also a lot more feminine, and she has a very amazing way of telling stories and just connecting to people on an emotional level. Where I have my own unique style, and it's still some of those things, but it's very different. And so you get the masculine, feminine, the dynamic of two different backgrounds. So people really love that, and I think once we came together, it really opened up the world to us in different ways. Because a lot of people that maybe were attracted to what I do found Juliet, and they're like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that I needed this, but this is fantastic because it really completes how I want to work with people." And some of the people from Juliet's world first were like, well, who's this guy? And then once they started seeing my stuff, they were like, oh, that makes sense. I love how you talk about this more and bring that into it. So it's a perfect sort of combination and blend that we really work well together. And it helps us to work with people that might have found Juliet first or found me first, but then they end up realizing that both of us have stuff to teach them and help them with.
And so when people hear about Evolve and Relaunch, for
Yeah.
instance, Paul, and they check it all out, and what do you find that most people that come to you, what are they actually looking for themselves?
I think most people that have found our stuff have heard about it through someone who's done it, and
Right.
they've seen a transformation in them, or they've heard a great example of like, hey, that would change my life. That was something that I really, would recommend to you. And they're coming in curious because there's a really three things. Some people have things that they know they want to let go of and that they've been holding on to for a while. So I'm a real big believer that some of the tabs that we have open are unresolved negative emotional stuff from the past. Maybe it's early childhood stuff. Maybe it's something you saw growing up. Maybe it's something that was said to you. It doesn't matter how great our parents were or who we grew up around with. We're going to get some residual echoes of something that was said or something that was done that carries with us challenges, and that sometimes shows up at work, that sometimes shows up in relationships, because we tend to model and live what we saw growing up. So if we have a bit of a dynamic in our relationship, it's probably echoes of what we saw from our parents. Or if we've got some money challenges or beliefs, that's probably based on our religion or background, and our parents said growing up, don't do this, or money shouldn't be doing this. And so what I've seen with a lot of people is they become aware of that and they want to shift it because they realize how important the base level programming is on their ability to take action and do things, and what they will be and what they'll have and what they won't let themselves be and what they won't let themselves have in their life. So that's a huge thing. There's other people that are ready for a change. They come in and they know that where they are isn't where they want to be. They want to take their power back. They want to take control. They want to be able to use their mind and body better. They want to shift how they think and feel. And they maybe want to make a career change. They want to add a new skill set and they want to do something different. So there's a lot of people that come in and want to be certified or want to become a coach, therapist, want to be able to communicate more effectively. There's those people that want to add something to their life. And then there's other people that are just really already on the journey of helping people and they want to add another skill set or really level up how they work with people because they know that what they're doing is getting a result, but they want to take it to a whole nother level because they've seen what's happened with some of our other students, or they've heard, through the success stories and even been a client and then want to take it on and add it to their business as well.
How has Evolve and Relaunch changed your life?
It's been huge. It's kind of mirrored my life as I've gone through. Obviously, I went through my personal challenges, which then brought me the skills and the tool set to help myself. And that's one of the big things I talk about with students as well is the first client is yourself. And as you work through and use it with yourself, you're going to find that your ability to help other people is huge. And not everyone wants to be a coach or therapist. There's a lot of people that come to us and do trainings with us as a business owner, as a parent, as a person who runs a team, and they just want to get the best out of themselves and communicate more effectively. So what I've noticed in myself is my ability to see the external world in teaching these things and sharing this. It's really helped me to cement it in and live it as a way of life and bring in the mind body in myself, because it's something I struggled with a lot growing up and early on. And I always find if there is any wobbles, to always come back to the principles and always come back to the key things that I teach, because that just makes my life easier. I can show up more effectively. I can be my best self, because obviously when I'm presenting and teaching, people are coming for that inspiration. They're coming for that energy. And if I'm not living it, that's going to show through an echo. So when I feel my best, when I'm focused on what I want, and when I do those things, it just echoes through. And what it's done for me in my life, it's really just been an example of proving to other people what's possible, but also shifting my belief. I've been lucky enough to work with, you mentioned a few different things, business owners, athletes, but also people that have gone and seen other kinds of therapists that haven't been able to get a result. And then they've sat down with me, we've done some sessions, or even in a class demonstration, helped them to shift something that they were told, you'll never be able to shift this. You're going to be stuck with it forever. And that's something that I really look back on as being one of the highlights of my life, is to help someone that felt so stuck to shift that. That's magic. That's something that I don't know if I'd ever get in a different industry or career. And so I love teaching my students that's possible as well, because I think when people get that they can change, even though sometimes people think they can't, then anything's possible. And like, I get to live that, I get to teach that to people, and it's really inspiring for me to see that in my students and see them help. And sometimes you get a message saying, hey, you won't believe that I've just had a client that this, or hey, remember we worked on this, and how that's showed up in my life now is totally different. It's really exciting and inspiring to see that on a regular basis. And it's, obviously why I do what I do.
Paul, do you have days where you aren't on the mark? And
Yes.
if so, given your extraordinary story
Mm-hmm.
and how you have, pardon the pun, evolved in everything that you do, Paul, on those days where, if and when you do have,
Yes.
wobbles, what do you do to get yourself out of that?
Everyone in the world will experience wobbles when they're doing things that aren't high on their values. So for me personally, if I ever feel low energy, uninspired, and start, thinking, why am I doing this? It's because I'm doing things that aren't high on my values. So everyone is inherently motivated and inspired by what's most important to them. And when they are doing things like that, they'll get goosebumps, they'll get tingles, they'll feel like they can talk about it all day. If someone asks them a question about it, they will be blah and nonstop. Or they'll just have energy, they won't even eat sometimes, they'll just work through anything, right? But you can take the same person and put them in a completely different context, but they won't show up like that. It's not that they're not that person that can be motivated and can be inspired. It's just the things that they're doing or focused on aren't inspiring to them. So what I've noticed in myself is running a business isn't all presenting and teaching, coaching and changing people's lives or helping people have an insight or light bulbs. There's sometimes emails. There's sometimes posting on social media. And so when I get bogged down in those kind of activities, that's something that can shift the energy. So what I would recommend for anyone that is feeling that is to get really clear on what's important to you in life. Because when you know what that is, you feel your time, your energy, your space, you'll spend money on it. You'll get up in the morning and you'll want to do that. There's nothing that will stop you from being your best self when it comes to that. And it's different for everyone. If you know what that is, you're going to have infinite energy and you're going to be a genius in your highest values. You'll be creative, you'll be problem solving, you'll find ways to work it out. In your low values, you almost seem like you've lost all your mental capacity. You'll be your worst self. No energy, no focus, lose track, be distracted, all those kind of things. So if you can look at your day-to-day life and look at the things that you are inspired to do, you'll see that you're showing up amazing. If you look at the things that you're uninspired about, you'll see that there's a different version of you that shows up there. There's a couple of activities where you can ask yourself, how does doing this activity help me to fulfill my highest value? And if you can create enough neurological connections, this is one way to do it. It's probably the easiest way over a podcast. And ask yourself that question enough times, you're actually going to start to see how even sending an email, even posting on social media, or those things that might not be inspiring. Some people, they love doing that. For me, it's not one of the highest priority tasks. But if you can see that, it'll actually get you to start being more creative, and you actually be inspired, because you know that maybe posting on social media will help you get a new client that will then help you to teach, which will then help you to spread your message more. Maybe it's going to teach you a new way to teach. It's going to help you to show up in a new way where you're being more creative, you're being more inspiring in a new platform. So your brain starts to switch on, and you'll feel the neurological connections change, because your brain structure, your lower brain structures are more survival based. Your higher brain structures and your prefrontal cortex, the different executive centers of your brain, are more linked to your highest values. And if you're in them, you're going to be more creative, more innovative, and more inspired to take action and do things with them. If you can connect those things that are slowing you down, dropping your energy, to them, it's like you're going to switch the light bulb on in your brain, and you'll find solutions that you never knew were there, and you'll show up in a different way. Or you just delegate those tasks to someone that isn't you, that likes doing them. So that's what I find is a big thing in my life. Also, coming back to the body, moving your body. If you're not challenging yourself with things that are inspiring, you're going to attract challenges that are uninspiring. So for me, health is a high value. And if I do something in the gym, I jumped in the gym this morning before on the way here, going for a walk, doing some stretching, anything that you can do to move your body, it would actually move your mind as well, because your body and mind are not separate. And if you've got a low energy, low mood, you're probably not getting enough oxygen in your body. You're not moving the blood around. You're not creating those normal chemistry that is necessary for your body to function optimally. So even just doing something as quick as doing a couple quick squats, doing a couple of star jumps, you don't need to go to the gym, but you could do a wall sit and just sit up against the wall and sit there, challenge your muscles a bit, get the blood flowing a little bit. You stand up, you're going to feel like a different person. So just challenging your body a little bit will also then make other things easier. So there's things that you can do. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people jumping into cold water and doing different aggressive breathing techniques. That'll kind of shock your body into waking up again. So if you feel like you can't do it through the mind, you can always do it through the body. And they're things that I like to use on a regular basis, different things for different energy. Sometimes you want to slow down as well. So stretching, a yoga, meditation is sometimes the way people need to go, because you're either sometimes too far wound up or you're too relaxed, and so you've got to switch the needle,
Find that balance.
which way you need to go.
Yeah, excellent. Paul, for the future, because you and Julia travel all over Australia and internationally with everything that you do, what's coming up for you in the future?
We're about to start teaching some of our certification programs. So in the next couple of weeks, we've got our NLP and timeline therapy practitioner, which people come to for a personal transformation and to really understand what makes them tick, unpack their world a little bit, but also get a big shift in that. So once they've unpacked some of their beliefs, some of their emotions that may have been holding on to for a while, we're actually going to help coach them through how to shift that. And one of the benefits of that course is not only will they be able to get their own personal transformation, they walk out with the skills and the certification to be able to do that as a coach if they want to do that in their own right. So some people come there just for themselves. Some people want to become a coach or therapist or bring it into their skill set already. And then I'm also teaching hypnotherapy in a couple of weeks after that. And that is a really transformative event where people get to experience what's possible with their human consciousness. They get to go into different states of awareness, but they also realize the power of their language and how much they're already hypnotizing themselves or have already been hypnotized. And that kind of blows the lid on what they think is possible. And I've seen people become better parents, better bosses, amazing therapists by using that skill set. So that's a few things we've got coming up. Juliet is running a book writing retreat as well. She's helped people release their books. You work with her as well, which is great, and helped me release a book as well.
Yeah.
She's doing fantastic work with that, and we're both coming out with some more entry-level things so people can step into our world, because some people aren't ready for the big courses, even though a lot of people jump in and they love it. We're also going to help them some new ways to work with us as well.
That was going to be my final question, because everything that you've shared with us today, which has been, I don't know about our audience right now, but I've had so many light bulb moments.
Yeah.
And I've worked with you,
Yes.
right? So, this is another great example of we're always evolving. We're always learning. We're always tuning into something that we didn't know that we had, right? Is that My final question was going to be is that if you didn't want to, become a trainer yourself or a therapist yourself, the courses that you do that give so many insights and transformation for us as an individual, is that something that we can do with these courses? And that's what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm,
Like I said earlier, every coach or therapist that signs up, I would say come in and work on yourself first.
mm,
We've all got things that we can shift and all things that we want to level up. And some people just come in because they know they're not where they want to be, or they know they've got some things they want to let go of.
mm,
And that's a great place to be, because they're going to be life skills. They're going to be things that you're going to carry with you. And some days when you're feeling the thing pop up, you'll be able to catch it, or you'll notice a pattern and theme. And what becomes obvious to a lot of people that have done our trainings is they see that the patterns in their life a lot more, and they'll start noticing their own limiting beliefs or some of the patterns that are coming up, and they'll be able to pick them. And we have a great community as well, where some people that aren't coaches and therapists still work and practice and swap with other people, so that they're being supported, and they've got life coaches or therapists in their corner where they just catch up and do things without having to be a life coach or therapist. So after even courses finishes, I've seen students work with each other for years, just as like a cheerleader friend, but they actually help each other shift things and they keep each other accountable. So you'll get a personal transformation in the course, but there is the echo effect of having people in your corner that are like-minded, that want to see you win and grow. Sometimes in life that's hard. You'll see people and family and friends that maybe you don't talk about your emotional stuff, or you talk about it just to trauma dump and complain. But some people will just see you and think that you don't want to change, you're stuck. But these people in our community will actually see you as the person that they know you can be and you want to be, and help you through those things, versus just go, oh, that sucks. They'll actually go, okay, let's do something about that, and help you to shift those things. Because we can either reinforce our problems by continuing to talk about it and just say, oh, this is the way it is, I'm stuck, and just build another layer of proof of how we're so stuck. Or we can break them down and start to shift them and actually start to see the possibility and reinforce a new belief, a new level of identity where you can do the things you want to do, and lock that in. So the people in our community really help people to do that.
That's so powerful, especially in today's environment globally in particular. That's an incredibly powerful thing to know and to be part of. It's a great community. Paul, my final question to you is, if you had an 8-year-old Paul in front of you right now, what advice would you give him?
I would tell 8-year-old Paul to have fun and just play. Enjoy the moment. You're never going to be 8-year-old again. Like, life happens fast, and you don't need to have it all worked out. Just enjoy. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but really just enjoy the moment, because it does change and life will happen, and you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be ready for anything. Just enjoy the ride, and it's a beautiful ride. You'll find something amazing every day if you look for it.
Paul, great advice, and thank you so much for being our guest here today on Soul Centred, the podcast. As I say, lots of light bulb moments. I know that our audience will definitely attest to that. I'm sure that I'd love to have you back on again.
I'd love to be back on again.
Yeah. In fact, we might have you and Juliet.
That would be amazing, and I'm sure Juliet would love to do one by herself as well.
Yeah. Have you guys on, because we're only just taking off the old example of
There's
one layer
lots
off
of things
that.
and even to go in more
Exactly.
depth than any of these things, I could definitely talk about. For sure.
That would be great, especially from a sporting perspective, in fitness in particular, and the mental mindset in fitness.
100%.
Let's touch on that the next time. But in the meantime, Paul Eliseo from Evolve and Relaunch, thank you so much for being with
Thank you,
us today
Jamie.
on Soul Centred, the podcast, and we'll look forward to having you back next time.
Thank you.